Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to do kind of a check-in reading. It's raining right now. It's thundering. I'm in the high desert, so it's always a big deal when it rains here, and it feels really symbolic because we're leaving that 5-day window after that first eclipse. My cat's like scratching on her scratchy paws back there, making a lot of noise. But yeah, and so it kind of feels like things are starting to settle down, where there's just like maybe a little bit of a pause in a sense in between. We have a few days before we enter into the 5-day window before the solar eclipse on the 21st. And so anyway, what I have been noticing as things are settling down, the pattern with that last eclipse, and of course in that last reading I was talking about how it hit me personally, how this pattern hit me personally. And a lot of people were relating. There was a lot around sacred partnership and just the dynamics with that. There was a lot that came through with that. But now I'm seeing, after talking with people and observing my family, and it seems like everybody, at least everybody that I talked to or witnessed, had some sort of, and myself included, some sort of traumatic event from the past come back around. And so it would have been something that sort of like fractured us, maybe was like a really emotional or represent. Okay, so this is what it is. It's like something that would trigger and represent like that primal wound of separation. That primal wound of separation. So if you're on any kind of sacred partnership journey, of course that's going to do that, right? That is like the whole point of it. But I saw it in other people as well. Like my friend, she had a bunch of people around the same time. It was like the 2020 year where there were all a lot of, there's still divisiveness and division, of course, just taking different forms, but the specifics of the divisiveness at that time. And so she had people in her life that, from like her childhood, I don't know if it was her childhood, but really, really long-term relationships, really woven into her, her upbringing and that kind of thing. Basically shut her out and not talk to her anymore because of differences in political opinions. And so, and then around that same time, there was a bunch of those. And so anyway, she had been recently, so that was like 5 years ago, she had been dreaming of these people that had been like coming up in the subconscious. And then she ran into one of them in the store, and he just completely ignored her and pretended he didn't know her. So, that being an example where something happened. So my daughter had one, my ex-husband had one. His was a trigger around court because he had to go to court for something, and it triggered him on all of our like many battles in the courts, and he had to like sit with that. So it's like something that's really hard on your heart, that just kind of fractures you, almost like you don't, like you didn't have the skills at that point to really be present with it and integrate it. So it just kind of fractured you, which would have been the point, because when we fracture again, we touch in with that primal wound of separation, and we have to go through the shadow work and the alchemy and the emotions and the things around that. So it all had its place. But something about this eclipse, where these things coming back around and just seeing it over and over and over again, everybody I talked to, I'm like, oh my God, there it is again. I saw it for my son, I saw it for my daughter, where they had to go back into sort of like old emotions with a similar situation that triggered. But this time it's like we've all evolved, we've all grown, we've come into our power and our sovereignty to whichever degree we could, where we could go back into that situation and not abandon ourselves, not fracture, not split. And so there's something around the theme of like other people's distortions, or it could also be like if you had some sort of really, like for my daughter, it was a really intense, we could call it psychic attack, we could also call it possession, we could call it lots of things, but it could involve that other person could be an entity, or something like that, some lower fourth dimensional situation that you were dealing with, right? But shoot, I lost my train of thought because it's always intense when I tune into that for her. But yeah, so something from our yeah, it would be representative of, so I was just saying, it would be a person, there would be distortion. So whether it's a person's distortions or just dark energies, or it could be some people have, really strong chemical sensitivities or mold sensitivities or these types of things. So that can be grouped in the lower astral type of energies that infringe upon our boundaries and fracture us. It's like a distortion, a distorted energy, whatever that is, an EMF, a frequency, uh, somebody's distortion that's coming at you, a false light thing, whatever it is, some sort of distortion that that throws you into your, that in the past threw you into your distortion, right? And again, the purpose of that is to clear and to align and to sit with your distortion and to see your shadow and to do that shadow work. Okay, so now it comes around again, but you've already done that shadow work. So when we fracture like that amidst distortion, we can it can be a trauma, it's a trauma, that fracture. It's like we have to be re-traumatized to do that shadow work, but then that trauma from the fracture that mirrors the fracture, you know what I'm saying? We're on this brainwave where we're not, right? Yeah, it creates a trauma. So these situations coming around again, where we get to go back into that energy, but this time with our wholeness and with our sovereignty and with what we have gained through all that shadow work, and be able to sit with it and to hold steady and to see it clearly, because it didn't need to throw us into distortion. And maybe we were tempted to, or maybe it did for a little bit, but we were able to claim our power and stay with ourselves. And not only clear that trauma, but there's a soul retrieval in that as well, that we heal that fracture that it highlighted for us gets healed because we're there in our wholeness. So really, I hope that made sense, but really huge eclipse, huge soul retrieval type of eclipse. And so this was coming up in the last reading as well. If you have been doing that shadow work, it will present for you in that way. And if you're somebody that hasn't, it will present as in like a lot of shadow work and a lot of unveiling. Both people on you. So that was coming up in the last reading as well. If you were somebody that was stealing energy or false light, or just spiritual bypassing, whatever that is, or even teachings or groups around spiritual bypassing, is like that kind of stuff is going to be falling apart, and you're going to be guided back home into your sovereignty as well. So, kind of two different ways. But what I was seeing was that soul retrieval and that unification and the redoing that trauma, revisiting that trauma from the integrity and the wholeness that you've achieved. And so really, really huge. But what's interesting then is it's like, and there were tests. It was almost like a test in a way. So I was talking about that last time too. A test, as in, are you gonna go into your distortion, and are you gonna go into the victim and the blame game, or are you gonna stay with your light and stay with your sovereignty, and implement that self-love and make the choices, the higher aligned choices, to not abandon yourself. Okay, so that was sort of the test in the personal. Well, then, as it often does, because it's all fractal nature, right? So we have the individual experience of that, and then we have the collective experience of that. And the other thing that you might notice is when you have a pattern or a neural pathway of distortion or trauma or something like that that needs to be healed, you'll keep attracting situations to give you the opportunity to heal that, right? And they might get less and less intense, whereas as you go along, you get like little homeopathic doses of it. Like it doesn't take much, and you're like, oh, there's that pattern, and you're like walking yourself out of it. You're walking yourself out of it. Like when I first got out of my very narcissistic marriage, I couldn't go from that to healthy. I had to walk my way through. And so the first man I was with after that was sort of this like dark magician, person that was helping me. He was better than the other one, but it was still sort of that. And then I had to like gradually make my way. So that's how it is with our traumas, right? Like we make a little progress, and then we pull in something else. We make a little more progress, and because we just can't do it all at once. Maybe some people can, maybe some people do bigger chunks, but it just depends how you do stuff, right? So you can tell when you're really moving through a trauma pattern, when you start seeing it it's not coming at you directly. It might be coming towards a friend. It's the same pattern, but it's not on you. It's a friend, or it's in the collective. And so that's what I feel immediately after this huge, oh, it's interesting also because I have a friend, and I saw her yesterday, and she was doing like electrical work, and because there was this emergency at this like place that she's caretaking, so she was doing electrical work, and she's just teaching herself, and she's watching YouTubes, and she's just figuring out how to do it. And so we made the connection at the end, like, oh, you're doing electrical work, you're like rewiring, because there's all this rewiring going on, all this rewiring in our brains and with these traumas and all this. And so We had that with the eclipse, and then immediately, we go as expected, as we go through a PowerPoint and we retrieve all this power. There's something in the outer world to test us as well, and we could view it from a fourth dimensional sort of victim perspective, where it's like, oh, we're being attacked or they're trying to stop us, and that is true from that dimensional perspective. But on the higher dimensional perspective is just the nature of this realm. It's the realm of duality, and it's the name of the game is to remember that they're actually not separate. They've just been separated out in this realm, because that's it's the realm. There's polarity here. There's polarity, but to to not see them as separate, to not fall for the victim, to not fall for the distortions, to not allow the distortions from the other side of the polarity to trigger you into your distortions and your other side, but to keep them together and to stay that witness. So it's the same test. It's the same test that we had within ourselves and within our holograms, but in the outer world, and so you can feel it. And that's what I feel is going on now. The collective energy is just buzzing, and again, it's like that, the other side of the polarity, where we have an uptick in light, we have an uptick in dark. And it's like, are you going to fall into that, fall out of your sovereignty, fall out of that wholeness, and get pulled into the distortions that are running in the outer world, and creating chaos and creating fear and creating hopelessness and creating anger and creating victim and blame, and all of a sudden we're on political sides again, and all this stuff. It's just another test. It's a fractal of that same energy which we just accomplished. A lot of us just accomplished, and some people are just spinning in shadow. But those of us that have earned and gained that sovereignty through all of the shadow work that we've done, it's why we're here. It's why we went first. It's why we're front runners, so that we could be anchored within our wholeness and within our sovereignty, so that we could hold steady as lighthouses while the world went into chaos, as things purge and come up. And again, it's that same thing where like the trauma that fractures you, and it fractures you. So we're seeing a lot of the fracture, and it just went from personal to collective. And of course, this is also true. And also, as you heal, your consciousness expands. So it's not just individual consciousness anymore. It becomes collective consciousness. So you can see yourself in that. And then it becomes galactic consciousness. You can see yourself in that. So it goes out on all the different levels, and you get to experience and see them and feel them. And the more you heal, because the more you heal, the more you come into unity. And the more, then when you're in unity, then everything is you. And it's all one, right? So to hold that space. So a lot of people getting to that point, passing these final tests, these final initiations, going back into a lot of those core wounds that have created and reflected that original trauma, that original separation from God, from self, from wholeness, from the unification of the polarities into that fall. So that's the work that a lot of us have been doing over the last 3 years, is what comes to my mind. Just came in like that, 3 years more, but real consciously and real fast time over the last 3 years, with the solar increase and all of the flares and the assistance, like where it was just go time. So now the world is starting to spin off, and we're being those anchors. Okay, so yeah, so that's about all I have to say about that. Before I jump into the cards, I also want to share, I'll try to be brief. I've been being guided to offer a new service. And when it first came through, I had a friend of mine. I met her a long time ago. I met over 25 years ago. And she had reached out to me. We had reconnected through Facebook and through the readings and stuff like that. And she had reached out to me, and she said, I keep being guided towards you, because I feel like you're the only person that's going to understand some of the stuff that I've gone through, and I really want to connect. And I was like, okay. And it didn't feel right to do a reading or anything. I was like, well, let's just talk, So we talked on the phone, and, she shared all the things, and, and it was just so magical how it linked up with my life. And we just had this like total expansive, beautiful thing. And then afterwards, I was saying to my daughter, I was like, I feel like I'm being guided to offer, like, maybe the best word, someone used this word today, that it does resonate, like mentorship, but the way I think of it as like just being like an ear, an ear and a channel in response for those situations and experiences that you've had that you don't have anybody else that you can talk to, or maybe you think it's too weird. And it's like, I've been through so much shit on so many sides of the, all the realm, that nothing's weird to me. And often people will say that to me, like, this might sound, like in readings, this might sound weird. And I'm like, nope, it's not going to sound weird. But I've been finding, and so I had somebody else reach out to me, and she kind of said something similar, like, I feel like you're, I don't know how many people that I can talk to about this stuff. I feel like we're on the same level. And so I was like, oh, do you want to do a reading? So we started with a reading. And then she was like, is it okay that I'm talking? I kind of just want to talk and share it. So that's what we did. And she's like, I'm just sort of looking for like a mentorship type of thing. And I was like, oh my God, like there it is, like instant manifestation. That's how it is for me. Like I'll sort of get the urge or the nudge to offer a new service, and then I'll be like, I don't know though, and then things will come along right away to just kind of be like, yeah, come on, this is guidance. And so anyway, that's what we did, and I decided I wanted to offer that. And so it would be like $75 for an hour, and then if we go over and you want to tip, that's fine, that type of thing. And basically just on the phone or through FaceTime, whatever you prefer. And just if you have something heavy on your heart that you want to process with somebody, when people talk to me, I do get a channel, and I often get information and just guidance, just that wisdom, also for my own life and things relating. But so just throwing that out there, if that is of interest to you, just know that that's available, and I'll probably write up something about it too. But so anyway, okay, I wanted to put that out there. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing with this eclipse too. Like as we pass these initiations and these tests, and we come into sovereignty and we choose ourselves, it's like something's opening up. There's more of us opening up. It's like more that we have to offer, or guidance in a different direction, or something like that. And just listening to that intuition. But even if you don't listen to that intuition, it's gonna find you. It's like me with those two situations. Is like it's gonna find you. So. This is interesting. We get the card for the overall energy owl spirit. You see clearly now, which is just really summarizing everything that I just said. It's like passing those initiations, coming out on the other side, and just being that owl medicine that just sees and knows, and being that anchor. It's the crown. It's the crown chakra. So several readings ago, we were talking about clearing that self-doubt, where a lot of us were going through that at the time, where we were comparing ourselves to other people and feeling like, oh, well, maybe we're not enough, and doing a lot of that clearing and rewiring the neural pathways, like I was saying in that reading, and also with my friend with the electrical. And that's the other thing, where it's not just where it goes out into the physical. You're making progress where you see it in the physical, where it's not just in your hologram and in your head. It's like she's literally working with electrical, electrical wires, and it's symbolic, but it's becoming anchored. Okay, so that's the other thing. And one other thing in this energy, bringing it into physicality, like speaking something out loud, or putting the energy into a painting, or into a dance, or into a meal, or into photography, or whatever it is. Just anchoring the energy, bringing it out into the physical. Not necessarily as like oh, I'm gonna do this, but it feels like the next natural response, where it's moving out into the outer levels. Okay, because we've reached this within ourselves, and now it's rippling out. Let me see. Let me pull a tarot and see what else. That is a number 7 card, which has been coming through as that Christic energy. So again, seeing clearly, holding that the masculine and the feminine, the 1 and the 1 equaling 3, that creation energy, the holding the polarities together, not fragmenting off into blame or separation. And that's a lot of what's been coming up as well, where it's like the situation that may have triggered you in the past, you can see it as a reflection of a distortion that you needed to heal. And so this time around, you're like, oh, okay, I don't really need that anymore because I've healed. So now I'm not reacting to it. I can just move through it and release it. You're just releasing that last bit of trauma, but being able to see also that the reflections in your life, everything in your life is a reflection of you, and all of the distortions were a reflection of distortions that you held, So for me, with the masculine energy, I was always turning on myself. I was always turning on my intuition and doubting myself. And so that post that I posted, if you're watching on Facebook, about like gaslighting yourself, like 20 minutes after you had this like great mystical experience, like how many of us do that? And then we wonder why our outer masculine energy isn't supporting us. It's a reflection. It's all a reflection. So not blaming and not, hating or being mad. It's like, oh my God, like that fucking pussy that can't show up for me is me. That's me. That's me. Every time I doubt myself, every time I get guided to do something and I don't step forward with it. So really important to step forward with your intuition right now, because that creates that God fractal of your inner masculine, listening to your inner feminine, bringing them together, and then you're able to create in your reality, and you're able to move forward. So stuff like that. But just seeing where you've abandoned yourself, and even like with my friend, where the people abandoned her in her life for not believing like they did. It's like, in what ways are we abandoning ourselves? You know, that kind of shadow work. And before, again, the shadow work was just kind of, we were just kind of drowning in it and like couldn't see, and just, it was all at once, and we fell into our distortions. But now coming back around and being able to see it and view it with consciousness. Wow. Wow. So the Tower, that's really interesting. The Tower can be an epiphany. In this deck, you know, it's like, instead of like the castle, you know, you're like false creations falling to the ground. Often the Tower is a Tower moment where what you've built up that wasn't true is falling. But in this deck, it's nature, and it's a tree. It's a natural process. There's the mushroom. Is that mushrooms? I don't know what that is. That might be fire or something. Kind of looks like a mushroom. Anyway, the butterflies, you know, the fire, the squirrel, you know, his little nest that he built for himself, you know, but still, it's a natural occurrence. It's coming through lightning. So again, that kind of energy that's coming to assist us, that's coming to break things down. Let's clarify this. These are kind of intense cards. The owl is really intense. It's like sitting on that pin, that needle, where you're seeing really clearly. Oh, interesting. The King of Pentacles. So that is sort of like our empire, you know, our earthly empire, what we've built around us, everything that you know, our lives, you know, what we've built to sustain us. Let me pull a little more. This is interesting. Okay. The Two of Wands. So that's that spark of desire, that sort of like real primal yes, that knowing in your soul that you want something. Knowing in your soul that you want something, that spirit guidance. Our desires come from our soul. So our desires are path, you know, their path, and they're guiding us. Wow, and the Nine of Cups. So this came up in the last reading as well, and that is that wish fulfillment. So what I'm getting from these cards is just that this, whatever this Tower moment is, whatever that's rocking your stability and rocking the things that you've built around yourself, are making room for that which you truly want. This wish fulfillment coming in. It's really dark in here. It's because it's raining. It's not even that late, but that's okay. Anyway, yeah, making room for this coming in. So that was kind of coming up in the last reading as well. But with this card coming, you know, I don't know. I don't know what's on the horizon. There's a lot of crazy shit going on in the world. Crazy energy, crazy disturbance, crazy. I mean, I know all the empaths are feeling it. It's just weird energy. But again, just like holding that center, and trusting for humanity as well. Like, you might be in a place where this doesn't have to crumble because you're living in alignment. You know, you're living in an alignment. There might be some adjustments, but I think for a lot of the world, this false stability is crumbling. It's crumbling, but it is making way for, you know, it's like you lose something, you can't afford your food anymore, so you got to start a garden, and you got to start trading with your neighbors or your community members, or, you know, it's like you decide you want to take your kids out of school and homeschool them because the schools aren't safe. But it's bringing us into a more soul aligned way of living, and just trusting the things that are falling apart in the world or in your life or in the lives of your family or friends. Just trusting all of it. It needs to happen. And holding that center, holding that view, holding that higher view to be a stabilizing force while things kind of fall apart. New beginnings. Yeah, there it is again. Yeah, new beginnings. So that's what it's about. And just that reminder. Okay. The Silky. Wow, the Silky. And it's a number 5 card, which is a card of change. So this is really interesting because, you know, the Silky card, it's like when you're a human, you want to be your seal self, and when you're a seal, you want to be your human, and it's that feeling of being in between worlds. Oh my God, in between worlds. There are a lot of people that are in between right now. They're in between. It's like they feel this call and this thing, but they're so afraid to let go of what they've built around them. And if you are on a divine counterpart journey, this directly relates to the masculines, the masculines that have taken on a lot of density, in service. And again, it's a contract that you have. You're playing the part that you're playing because it's all collective energies that we're working. So you've taken on, a lot of the masculines have taken on a lot of the density, and a lot of the feminines taking on them, to hold that space, because you have the capacity to see clearly and to hold that space. But a lot of that distorted energy. So this again is collective, but it's also individual in terms of those that have really been holding on to those false realities and just been really afraid of that ego death. They feel they hear the call, but they can't let go, because a lot of them have been very successful. They're magicians, so they're able to create empires and businesses and have success and get the women and whatever it is. But it's falling. The false is falling. It's falling in the world. It's falling for those on the divine counterpart journey. This is coming up. Wow, because especially for the people. So it's falling especially for the people that have been kind of in between these worlds, where they understand this. But they're here in the human world. They're here in the 3D, and they're kind of trapped in the 3D. But they also understand the higher realms. They understand it, and yet they're stuck, and they can't make that move. They can't make that move. This is that divine intervention, and so that's what I was getting from this card, where it's like it's natural. It's natural. This is where we're at in human evolution, and you know why? Because the feminine energy leads. The feminine energy is magnetic. The masculine energy is electric. The masculine energy, the electric seeks the magnetic. And so the feminine energy has to lead. Our world has it backwards, this upside down world with the false empires. The feminine energy has been taught to follow the masculine, to follow the rogue masculine energy. Masculine, in this case, the distorted masculine that we've been conditioned into through our educational systems, through religions, through false light spiritual programs that make you feel you have to look outside of yourself and follow some sort of system or rule instead of tuning into your own knowing, trusting your own knowing, which again creates that split where you're not listening to yourself, you're looking outside of yourself. So it creates a split between the masculine and the feminine in the outer world as well. And so all of that, I lost my train of thought because it's so deep. Oh my God. So yeah, it's like that fracture that's been going on. Wow, I'm getting dizzy. Is breaking apart. It's like it can't. So the feminine has come into her knowing. She's pulled her energy back. So we've been conditioned, all of humanity, even the men. The masculines have a feminine, that soul, that divine wisdom, that knowing, the owl, seeing clearly and turning on themselves and feeling like they have to abandon their spiritual centers and their knowing, their inner knowing, their shaman selves, because they have to play this. It's been really hard for the men. They have to play this. They have to go, they have to, provide, and they have to be impressive, and they have to build their empire, and they have to do all these things. So they're ignoring their feminine, and then they ignore their divine counterpart as well, because they're addicted to this. It's that devil energy, but it's that conditioning. But the feminines have that as well. Feminines have that in them as well, because we can doubt ourselves and doubt our knowing, and even doubt everything that we might feel about these connections. Or about your intuition, or even me with like being guided to offer a different service and being like, I don't know, and I needed to manifest something to be like, yes, it's okay, like do that, that's good, that soul desire is it's part of your path, it comes from that. And so in whatever way we are abandoning ourselves, we're feeding the split, we're feeding the lie, we're feeding the false program, and all of that coming down now. It's coming down, and it's being split open. It's being split open in our psyches. It's being split open in our relationship. It's being split open in our world. The false is crumbling. If it's crumbling, it's false. If it's not false, it's not going to crumble. If it's crumbling, it's false. And so we can trust that, because it's about this new beginning. And so again, especially those that are in between, that are really hearing this call, that are just kind of attached to this, are going to have this tower, but it's in service to them. Again, it's just that divine timing, and it's going to help liberate them to follow their spark. All of us to follow our spark, to follow our desires, and to come into that wish fulfillment. So this is coming up in the last deck too. After we do that shadow work, we're a match. We're a match. We're clear to receive that which is truly in alignment for us, and then we don't have to steal and build and hustle and play in the false reality. It's just a reflection. It's magnetic. We magnetize it in. It's magnetic. So I'm always talking about the Queen of Wands. She's always coming up, and that intact circuitry where we're not leaking our energy. So every time you say no to somebody that wants to steal from your energy, or you say no to feeling bad about yourself because somebody's rejecting you or something like that, you align with yourself. You use your inner masculine energy to hold and to comfort you, to be there for you in the way that maybe nobody else is, or the people that are triggering you aren't. You bring your fractals, your polarities together. You bring your two halves together. They're not separate anymore. They get to be in the same space. You can be both at once. And that is the new beginning. That is, and this is a number 13 card, that is that divine feminine energy, that which has been cast out. The 13, the evil. I turned 13 on Friday the 13th, it's like, yes, my soul was like, let's anchor this in, the divine feminine needs to be put in the center, it's the soul, it's the guidance, it's our oracle, it's our knowing, and so she's coming out right underneath this new path that we're moving into, this new beginning. Is one of allowing our intuition to lead, and we're gonna have to, because this kind of stuff, this sort of like false empire energy through hustling is falling. It's not working anymore. But again, whatever might be falling apart in your life, let it go, let it fall, because it's making way for this. It's making way for what you truly want, where you don't have to be divided in yourself anymore. It's like you're being let off the hook. Like, you get fired from that job you hated, good. Don't worry about it. Like, you're going to be provided for. And one of the things that I've been really being reminded of and utilizing and hearing other people talking about as well, so it's a synchronicity, is that self-talk. Like, one of the things that I've been saying every day is I am a magnet to miracles, and everything works out in miraculous ways for me always, or all of my needs are met in abundance, or everything that I need comes to me exactly when I need it, and I always have everything that I need, this kind of stuff, this kind of talk, because your subconscious is listening, and again, reprogramming the subconscious, reprogramming from the false conditioning that told you that you have to climb up these stairs, and you have to do all these things to be worthy, and just reprogramming that, doing your own electrical work, and doing that by stating things, what's actually true, and calling it forth through believing it. My friend the other day, she said to me, and she said it with such conviction. She was telling me about the woman that she was helping with, that she was the caretaker of, and the woman was trying to micromanage her, and she's like, you have me to solve these problems. Let me solve them in my own way. I am a master manifester. And I was just like, oh, press pause. Like, oh my gosh, let me record you saying that, because she said it with such conviction. And it's true for her. She's seen herself, over the years. It's like whatever she needs, she always figures it out. She's a problem solver, and she knows who to pull in for this and who to pull in for that. And she's, always putting people together. And, she was part of like grants and like, she was like right in the hub of our town, like creating all these projects and, all these things. She's just a fucking powerhouse. And so, yeah, so it's like that, but her claiming that and knowing it. And it's like, even if we don't know it yet about ourselves, to say it with conviction, and then it becomes true, because the more we believe something, the more we experience it. And so I had that with money. Like, I had to leave my crazy situation, and I lost everything, and yet I was provided for, and I saw that. And then over the years, I was still in poverty consciousness, because I was in poverty, but I would I was like doing, I was like cleaning and like just like on my back and, doing all these jobs that I like absolutely hated, but I was sort of just hustling and trying to make it work and all this. And at one point I lost one of the jobs that I had, and I didn't have a whole lot of notice, and it was a good chunk of money for me, and I needed it for my kids and all this, and I was just sort of in shock, and I was like, shit, And then literally like 3 days later in the mail, I got this notice that my ex-husband didn't qualify for food stamps anymore. So I got the food stamps for my kids, and it was the exact same amount plus like $10. And that was the moment where I was like, oh oh my God, like none of this is real, you know? So I've seen that over and over again in my life. Like even like one time I wanted to buy, I wanted to buy rugs, and I really wanted two rugs, but I could only afford one rug. And so, when the rugs came in the mail, there were two. Like they had accidentally sent a whole, and they were big rugs. They were like, you know, like for me, you know, it was sort of expensive, but I had this free rug. And so I was just like, wow, you know, or like I wanted to get a ukulele and I had enough money saved, but I needed like, I don't know, maybe like $60 more. I just needed a little bit more. And I was just like, okay, well, I really wanted it. I really wanted it right in that moment though. And I looked at my bank account and I literally had $60 more than what I was supposed to have. I had like the exact amount that I needed. And I was like, well, maybe that was a mistake. Like maybe I probably shouldn't spend it because they might catch the mistake and then like, you know, take it back. But I was like, well, I'm just going to buy it anyway. And then in the meantime, I'll be able to put that money in, you know, things were really tight. And it never got corrected. It was just like somehow I like magically materialized the exact amount that I needed for my ukulele. So I have a really good relationship with abundance and money. I don't worry about money. I don't worry about the like, income support cuts that we're having. It's like something will come along, you know, and just once you realize that this is not like the linear conditioned realm that we think it is, it's, you know, it's like there's magic and there's human, and to merge those together, that creation energy, once you merge those together, it's like a whole new set of rules starts to apply. It's like magic realm where your consciousness attracts and where your alignment brings things in, you know, it brings in what you're here for, what your soul is guiding you towards, and the abundance that comes from that. And so it really behooves everyone to kind of cut this program and to start stepping out into I'm going to sneeze, I think, into realms, you know, into these outside of the programming, and realizing that everything is a reflection of us. So again, if something's in your hologram, it's just wanting you to heal. It's just assistance wanting you to heal. And once you heal that, it gets farther out, and then the game starts to collapse. And so that's what this is, you know, the game collapsing. So it's in service to us. It's helping us to step outside, to see, because like for me, I had to lose everything to see that the world was magic, you know, and I'm so glad I lost everything, because I could still be there in that false empire, you know, like doing things I didn't want to do, being in a horrible marriage, and you know, I'd probably be dead by now, or he'd be dead by now if I had done that. But yeah, or staying in that job or whatever. But just like jumping ship, and seeing how not only is this the things falling apart, but it's also the things coming in. You know, the things coming in. It's like the vacuum. You know, the lightning creates the thunder. The lightning creates the vacuum, and then the thunder comes. Boom. You know, it clashes back together. It's like that. As soon as we create a vacuum and we step outside and we either manifest these things to be shaken up, or we shake them up, you know, on our own by listening to what we're being guided to do. Then everything rushes in. And then this becomes, instead of a false empire, this becomes true abundance that's a reflection of our soul alignment, and that soul alignment being where we're going and where humanity is going. So if the world and all the craziness is getting you down, just remember, you know, this reading, this message really being for you then, that it's all in service. And you know, also remembering that this is a very long game that we're playing, and it's not just this little life where, you know, I'm Wendy Biondo in this life. It's like, no, that's just my role right now. It's like, you know, and again, as you heal and you grow and you get that collective consciousness and that galactic consciousness, and you start to remember or sense that you've been around for a very long time, and you've played many different roles, and in some of those lifetimes you signed up to be the one to take one for the team, and you might have been one that was, you know, killed off in some way, and your soul chose that. You chose that to be a catalyst in your own soul journey and a catalyst for those around you. And so it's contracts, it's soul contracts. And that's not saying this to spiritually bypass. Obviously, if we're close to somebody and that happens, then, you know, we're contracted to have that grief, and we're contracted to process and do that alchemy. But it's like we're all playing our different roles as we unravel, again, the conditioning to be split in our polarities, which has separated us from God, from all that is, from unity consciousness, from the law of one, from ourselves, from our inner feminine, from the mother, however you want to say it, from the union of the polarities that gives us that creation power, that co-creation power, that creation power where we are that God fractal. and we have access to it. But everything in our world, you know, this point in human evolution, you know, it's cyclical. So we were on a descending age, so we fell deep into amnesia. Now we're coming into an ascending age where we're remembering. We're remembering the truth of this realm, and we're clearing, and we're allowing things to fall off, and it's happening individually and collectively. And so to just not lose sight of that big picture, you know, a lot of these trauma programs kick up our own trauma programs, and just see it as a purge, see it as a way to clear, see it as a dark night of the soul that brings you deeper into unification of your separated parts, where they get to come together and live as one being. They're not separate anymore. Everything is in service. Everything is in service. Don't fall for the distractions. Don't fall for the distortions. You know, don't allow the distortions to pull you into your distortions. And if they do pull you into your distortions, remember that that's in service. That's so that you can see, so that you can witness, right? So a lot with that. I have been observing people, and you know, a lot of people that, even people that were, you know, are usually in alignment and holding that higher light, getting really thrown off right now, you know. And so if you are somebody that can hold that line, you know, I just hold it, you know. And if you're wobbling, remember that bigger picture, that when we wobble and we get upset and we go into victim, we're going back into that separation, which is the program. That's the consciousness. That's the frequency that creates all the problems. It creates all the problems. So, you know, you might feel irresponsible if you step out and you look away, but what you're actually doing is you're maintaining your wholeness. You're maintaining your integrity. You're not allowing yourself to be split. You're holding this because this is the frequency that's going to broadcast and transmit and structure. It's like structured water. We are the structured water. You know, we're structuring that water. So those of us that can hold steady in this are more powerful, more effective. Like every day, like just now in the rain, I drive past and there are these people holding their signs, and they're holding their sign. I'm like, what are you doing? You're in the rain, you know, and like nobody cares. You're gonna cause an accident, you know. It's like, what good is that doing other than making you feel that you're doing something, you know? And it's like the true service and the true effect is within our consciousness and within our turning towards our soul, turning towards that oracle within us, that one who knows, that one who sees clearly, and allowing her to guide, and being that God fractal and co-creating through our energy, through the quantum space. And rippling that out and bringing these severed parts back together, and realizing that they were never separate. There was just a program in the way, and that program is coming down. So let's not. I mean, if you want to protest, go ahead. You're probably not watching this video, but let's not protest the very natural, at this point in human evolution, on the rise, the natural destruction of that which has been false, and everything falling apart. And it's not a linear thing. It's not gonna make sense, you know. It's like it might look one way, but it's actually about this coming home, being able to flow freely and receive freely, and that's the new beginning. So, okay. So that was kind of a rant. I just got on a rant, but that's where it took me. So, okay. Path, exactly. Yeah, this is the path. We're walking the path. The path is perfect. And the path, and so we were talking about that in that reading. Everything is energy in motion, dancing itself out towards perfection. Trust this path. Don't fall into distortion. Don't fall into the blame game or the victim or the separation. You're just feeding the very system that you're angry at. And I think most people that watch these videos know this, but just in case you know, in case that's a new concept for you, you know, it's it really is. Everything is unified, and when you realize that everything is unified, you realize that everything is God. You know, everything is consciousness. You know, everything, every player on all sides. You know, and it's all is just this perfect setup, and the point is to play the game, to become aware, to see the game of polarity, and to realize that the point is to see it all as one. You know, everything is in service to the light. Everything is taking us where we need to go, and to get out of that duality game. Yeah, and watching our words as well. I'm noticing a lot of people correcting their words and not wanting to speak in those terms, because words are spells. And again, like with the I am a magnet to miracles, you know, this type of thing. What we speak, we draw towards us. So being careful with our words, right? Okay. All right, so I think I'm just going to pull these last two cards, and then I'll wrap up most likely the Empress of Pleasure. Oh, that's interesting. So this came up for me in a group reading that I did at our EES center, the Empress of Pleasure, and the way it came out for me. And so it's similar because what was going on then? There was something going on in the fires. There were like the LA fires. I think that's what it was. And so it was sort of a message of support. And it was kind of similar like this, where it's like you might feel that you're being irresponsible by doing things that you love, but it's actually that same energy, So the Empress of Pleasure, is again that feminine energy, turning towards that feminine energy and that self-love. And where if you're feeling really strung out and you feel just like you're spinning in your distortions, to take a bath, make yourself a cup of rose tea with cardamom and honey and maybe a little cayenne and cream, something super nourishing, and that it's not irresponsible. It's actually, again, you're coming back into that God fractal where you're turning back towards yourself. You're being the one that's nurturing yourself. Remember that we're all fractals, and what we do for ourselves and within ourselves, we broadcast out and we transmit that frequency and that energy. And so, again, the best way to contribute and the best way to heal is to tend to yourself. Again, come back to your intuition, but also come back to your self-care. If you're tired, again, like fuck this, this sort of empire where you got to just keep jumping through the hoops and going and going and going. No, you need to listen. We need to listen. And when we're tired, lay down. And when we can't take any more self-nurture, this type of thing. And so, might feel irresponsible, like you feel like you have to like go out and do something, or but this is actually one of the most important things that we can do, is to get into our pleasure. Because when we're in our pleasure and we're enjoying ourselves, we're in our soul. And this is coming out right underneath this soul spark, where you know what you want. And I want this, you're in touch with your natural energy. You're not spinning out in distortion. You're not spinning out in fracture or in victim, where your body is not able to receive its intuition, its higher guidance about what it wants and needs, and you're not in touch with your flow. It would be like in cranial sacral work, the cerebral spinal fluid. If you have these blocks and these fractures in your energy body, then your higher self can't flow through. You can't hear it. You're pretzeled, you can't hear, and then your organs aren't getting what they need, and your muscles and your joints aren't getting what they need. And so how important it is to turn towards ourselves and to come back to that, so that we can function and we can hear and we can be living our lives through our guidance and our inner knowing, and not through the rogue programming, which is just going to perpetuate the very thing that we're unhappy about. It just perpetuates it. We're playing in that frequency. We got to get into a different frequency, and the way to get into that different frequency is to turn towards your feminine energy, the one that wants to be nurtured, the one that has something to say in that quiet moment when she feels safe. She feels safe to speak. She feels safe to let it out. So in a reading I was doing today, we were talking about how we both, not the reading, no, it was the thing where we didn't do the reading, and we were just talking, this new thing I'm offering, and we were talking about how we both have this thing, like when we're around certain people, our throats close up. And for me, it's like I'm not allowed to speak if somebody can't hear. It's like don't like pearls at swine, like don't say it, like don't, because they're not going to hear you, and my throat will literally constrict, and like my voice goes. And now, like if I feel that, I just don't talk, I finally learned the lesson. But I used to feel that way all the time, and I would try to speak through it, and then I'd say really weird things. Why? Because the frequency wasn't a match, and they weren't able to receive it. But things like that, like listening to the body, listening when the body says, don't go there, that person can't hear you, or that's not the right action, or again, listening to that inner knowing, but listening to the body as well, listening to when you shut down around somebody, because you're feeling a distortion in their energy field, which isn't allowing you to open, right? But to create that container for ourselves where we can open in our own presence, because we're that divine masculine energy for ourselves, creating that container where we can hear our own inner wisdom and we can take action on it. He listens, he comforts, he listens, he hears, and so again, tending to the feminine, again, the 13, where is it, the 13, she's been cast out, the feminine has been cast out, she's been sent to follow, or to serve, or to think that she's crazy, or to like endlessly hold space for people while they play out their distortions, and just be in service to bullshit and all this, and it's like no more. And so the feminine energy in a lot of us has pulled back our energy. We were talking about this in the last reading as well. We've pulled back our energy, so we have that magnetism, we have that circuitry going, and that magnetism pulls in the distortions. It pulls in that which has been led astray. astray, that which has been separated from its magical nature, that wants to get back home. It's coming to those of us, whether you're a man or a woman. If you've turned towards yourself, you hold that God fractal, and then you're in service, and so you're pulling in. You're pulling in those that need that intact energetic signature to find what's true. It reminds them of what's true. It reminds them of how to come back together. And so they're needing you. You're magnetizing it in, and you don't have to chase anything. It's going to come to you. And as a result of that, you're going to be guided in how to best serve from your soul, and that abundance is going to come in. And so, but again, the way to get into that position is to be there for yourself, and to tend to your pleasure, to tend to your senses, to get your feet on the ground, to enjoy the rain, to enjoy your garden, to enjoy open your window at night so you can cuddle up under that blanket because it feels so good, or whatever it is. Just like tend to yourself so that your inner feminine can feel safe, your inner oracle can feel safe to guide you and to speak to you, and you're creating a container to hold her. You're creating a safe space, and that's like in terms of the outer realm. A woman can't open to a man unless she feels safe. She can't offer all her gifts, her oracle gifts or her sensual gifts, to a man that's not holding a container for her, because she doesn't feel safe. But we can do that for ourselves. And again, whether you're a man or a woman, allowing yourself that container where your inner feminine can feel safe and guide you, and where you can bring your polarities together. And then there's just more God fractals in this realm, and you're not feeding this false system, and you're not feeding it to try to prop it back up, because it was bullshit to begin with, So it's cracking open now in our psyches, in our relationships, in our jobs, in our world, and that's the path. That's where we're at this point in human evolution, and it's 100% appropriate. We just got used to our little empires. The world got used to their little empires, and the divine masculines that took on the distortions got used to their little empires. But time is up. Time is up. And especially, like I was saying in that last reading, a lot of us have been called to pull back our energy. We're not feeding this anymore. Why? Because the frequency of the planet is such that it's not sustainable anymore. And if you are in touch with your inner knowing, then you're being guided in that way to pull back. And as a result of the pulling back, you're restructuring that water. So you're part of the solution. You're part of that solution, and things turning, and these things coming, and right on time. Right on time, because this is the time, the divine timing. The major arcana are about divine timing. The divine timing when these things are falling down. They're falling down, and we have enough people in place. Enough people, men and women, in place with their energy intact, being that God fractal, and also being in service to those that are ready, that are ready to come home, because they're seeing it now. They're seeing it now. She's left. she's stopped going down into those distortions to enable them and to prop them up and to chase them and to allowing that food source. She's pulled back her energy. So now she's magnetizing in. She's magnetizing in, and she's able to assist in the true way by being in her power and her sovereignty. Again, whatever gender you're holding, if you're aligned with your soul and your guidance and your inner feminine energy, and you've shut off the energy leaks, then you're standing as a lighthouse as well, creating this new beginning. And assisting others in coming home, because they're not going to know what to do when their tower blows apart. We're being put in position to assist. So okay, so I have one more card here, and I'm right about my long stopping time. Okay, so we get the Ace of Cups. Okay, so that's sort of that channel energy as well. So we're ending and beginning on that sort of channel energy where you are that open vessel. This is an open vessel. It's also a card of unconditional love. Unconditional love for self, which goes along with this, being there for yourself, and also that forgiveness, forgiving the others who have been in this density, because again, it's just where we're at in human evolution. And again, they're playing their role. They're playing their role as catalysts. They're playing their role as catalysts to awaken you into your inner knowing and your God fractal, which is part of your mission to stand and to create this new beginning. So honoring all the parts, and not shutting any of them off, because again, that's that victim consciousness, that's that separation consciousness, holding everything in unity in that unconditional love. And that's how we repair this, and that's the space that a lot of us are holding. So I feel like I was a little bit kind of all over the place, because these energies right now are pretty intense. My daughter and I just keep saying to each other, ooh, it feels so weird. Everything feels so weird. There's the collective energies going on. We're getting like a little bit of a breather before this next eclipse. I am going to do another reading probably next Friday about that second eclipse and see what comes through around that. But for right now, the main message that I'm feeling is just being a stabilizer, after that last eclipse where we did sort of come into that sort of soul retrieval and clearing of some of the trauma of the fracture and the fragmentation that happened through some of the things in our lives, being that space holder, and knowing that there's a lot of people that are going to be wanting to come home because things are shaking up and shaking up and maybe more for us as well, shaking up things that have become calcified, that need to leave light and room for the next level of our reflection, because we keep up leveling as we come home and we expand in consciousness. We get a new level of things that are a match to us. So allowing the old that's ready to go. Okay. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for listening, and blessings, and I'll see you soon, and we'll powwow again about that next eclipse, and it'll be great. All right. Much love. Bye-bye.